What is up, DMV basketball fans? Welcome into another Believe in DMV Hoops. I'm Matt Moderno. I'm joined here today by Brayden O'Connor of 11 and 5 George Mason. Brayden, how are you? Thanks for joining.
I'm good. I'm very good. Thank you for having me on the show, Matt.
For anybody not familiar with Brayden's game, he's averaging about 10.5 points, about 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, about 3 assists, 1 steal, and shooting over 40% from 3 this year, which is awesome. And just kind of like, I don't know, steering the ship for George Mason out there a lot, it looks like. And you guys are 2-1 in conference so far. So thought this was a great time to bring you on. And we'll have a lot to talk about here. Before we get going, we're brought to you by Stateside Vodka and their Surfside Hard Iced Teas and BetOnline. BetOnline continues to be the most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your online betting needs in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC, and more. From touchdowns to three-pointers and hat tricks, BetOnline has you covered on any game, everywhere, and every play. BetOnline, the game starts here. So, Brayden, maybe let's just start here. What are you on a basketball court? Are you a point guard? Are you a shooting guard? Are you a power forward? You do a little bit of everything out there for George Mason. So how do you see your game?
To be honest, I think one of the things that sets me apart from some other people is that I'm very interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
I would see myself as a combo guard. That's my role.
Okay.
I can play the point. I can play off the ball. And if I need to be the 4, I can set some screens and obviously get the plays going. But yeah, I definitely think I have a very interchangeable role.
I think that's a luxury for any college basketball coach because you could plug a lot of holes. And honestly, one of the things I wonder while watching is that something they talk to you about before a specific game? Like, hey, we need you to do a little bit more of X against this team. Or is it just sort of something you feel out as the game goes on?
I think it's a little bit of both because, we're watching a ton of film all the time. And I think that it's important to know different spots regardless of where your position is because you might be thrown in at any point and you need to know what you're doing. But yeah, I think sometimes it's on the fly. Like if we need to go small ball, he'll just let me know. And even like in film, like they'll let me know in case we go small ball. So some things like that.
And then obviously if somebody needs to change a game plan mid-game or at halftime because something's not working, you're malleable enough to help there with that too, which is great. Someone told me after you committed that you would be a Tony Skin kind of guy, and I wasn't super familiar with your game. I didn't watch a lot of UMass Lowell last year. Like, what do you think they meant by that? I guess, and do you kind of feel that way too? That you fit what they're looking for program wise?
Yeah, I think our motto is Patriot Pressure. I think that goes throughout like our whole community. I don't think that's just a basketball thing. I think it's the whole community of George Mason. And Tony Skin obviously had, a great career at George Mason, as you know. And his like whole demeanor is tough, like hard-nosed, blue-collar working people that are just willing to get down and do the dirty work whenever and whatever it may need be. And I feel like he kind of saw that in me at UMass Lowell. So when I took the chance to go into the portal, I kind of didn't even second guess it. I kind of came here. So
gotcha. I love that. Respectfully, you're not the biggest guy out there or the most athletic.
No.
And I read in a great article that your SID, Mark LaFrance, wrote early in the season here that, you didn't have any Division I scholarship offers going into your senior year of high school. You're kind of a self-made player here. And you mentioned that work ethic piece.
Yeah.
I guess, is that just, you mentioned it kind of permeates the program there. It feels like there are a lot of guys on this team that have that kind of chip on their shoulder. Is that something you guys feel in the locker room? Like, is that kind of like the vibe?
Yeah, I definitely think that's like a big part of like why. That's another thing that why Skin chose like the guys on our team. All of us have like this big chip on our shoulder. We want to do great things, and we all kind of had like that underdog mentality coming up. And I only had that one offer coming out of high school, and it was near the end of my senior year. So it was an interesting turn of events when I got that offer. I got that call, but I took advantage of that and came here my junior year. And so
I think for anybody watching this right now, it's in a similar situation. Just the hard work pays off mantra definitely applies to what you're doing here, and that's been fun to watch. Just going back to Coach Skin there, obviously he's a huge part of this, but you also have that previous relationship with Coach Hinnant. Can you talk a little bit about that and how far you guys go back?
Yeah, so as I was saying, in the during like my senior year of March, he was the one that was at my my high school basketball game. It was in March, and I don't know, it might have been end of February, but he was in that gym. And originally, they were looking at somebody else
Oh, wow.
And so, not saying I took somebody's opportunity, but I mean,
Sure.
anything can
Caught
happen.
their attention. Yeah.
Yeah, anything can happen in this sport. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I played pretty good in front of them. They liked what they saw, and he came up to me and came up to my grandmother, and I really appreciated that. That was very nice. And yeah, I mean, from my start of my freshman year all the way to the end of my freshman year, we were always like working in the gym, and we kind of got a little close. And then he transferred obviously here to George Mason, and I had a good sophomore year, and I came here.
It's awesome. The rest is history, as they say,
The
right?
rest is history. Yeah.
I quote from that same article that I mentioned. You said, "When I wasn't playing in the first half of the season, this was at UMass Lowell, I knew I needed to change.
Yeah.
I decided I was going to throw my pride aside. I was going to do whatever had to be done to help our team, and it just took off from there. I was willing to do the dirty work and anything the coaches asked for me. You're essentially a starting guard on a good A10 level team, and you're still doing that dirty work kind of stuff. And like there's a couple guys we've had on this podcast. I think Woody does that, Jared does that, Darius does that. Like, so it does seem to permeate throughout the team, like we talked about. But
Yeah.
I don't know, when you get to a certain point, right? Like you're playing on a good team, you're getting national TV games and stuff, and you're
Yeah.
playing at Duke and things like that. How do you kind of keep that edge and that same mentality?
That's a good question. I think it's because that we have so many guys like that, and it's
Mhm.
very contagious. I
I like that.
mean, I think that when we have guys like Jared Billups, Woody Newton, Darius Maddox, Jalen Haynes, so many different puzzle pieces, and so many different guys who have been underdogs and who have that chip on their shoulder.
Mhm.
I don't think it takes much like tuning in our roster to kind of make us feel like we have to have an edge. I think it's like more of a natural thing.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I think that shows a lot on the defensive end. You guys are really kind of shutting the water off for a lot of these teams.
Yeah.
How do you translate that to the offensive end a little bit more? I think a couple times late so far, you guys have struggled to create maybe the same easy looks you've gotten and force, turn your defense into offense. So
Mm.
what are you guys working on, I guess, to start to get a few more easy buckets throughout the course of the game?
Yeah, the first thing starts with us like sprinting down the court. I mean, basketball is a fast game. We're always sprinting up and down. But like in certain situations when, let's say, our big man grabs a rebound
Mhm.
and our point guard comes to get the ball, those other three guys got to be up the court quick because the ball might be coming up to them if there's like a disadvantage or an advantage for us. And I think that it's more of we have teaching points in practice where we talk about things like that. We have different drills and different setups. Yeah, so I feel like it's a bunch of repetition. It's a repetition thing.
I think when you get guys that all have that same approach, you can maybe make a bigger stride on the defensive end more quickly because you guys are all going to put the effort in to be a little ahead of the curve on that end. But when you have so many new faces, I think sometimes the offensive piece is the one that takes a little longer
Yeah.
to gel. Do you feel like you guys are starting to kind of click a little bit more on that end of the floor?
Yeah, I think that from the start, from our first exhibition game
Mhm.
to, I mean, we can even go back into the summer to when we all first got here. I think that we all had a mutual respect for each other. We are all Skins typical guys, and we all kind of knew that. So we started gelling pretty quick, but I feel like once we got into games, it was a whole new feeling. And then, I mean, now we're what, 16, 17 games in, 15 maybe. And we are, I mean, as you can see, it's starting to go pretty good for us. I feel like it's more of like the respect, the repetitions, and like all the practices and games that we've played. I think it's just natural. I feel like it's a thing that basketball players do.
Your role this year is a little bit different, I think, than the role you played last year at UMass Lowell. I see you as being a little bit more on ball and trying to like organize offense. So first,
Yeah.
you can tell me if that's wrong in a second. But second part of that is that a learning curve for you of finding how to get guys into spots that they're most comfortable in and figuring out like, okay, post entry pass, Jalen likes the ball here. Here's how we set him up, or
Yeah.
here's how I help create an open look for Darius, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I feel like my role at UMass Lowell, I was on and off the ball, but we had such a skilled point guard in Ayinde Hakeem. I mean, he's been there for 3 years and he knows his stuff. He's insane. He's a great player. And transitioning to Mason being like the main dominant on-ball guard, it was definitely an adjustment. I mean, point guard in high school is completely different than point guard in college. I mean, it's a completely different game. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I've always been very unselfish, and I always want to find guys. And in college, as the main point guard, I think it's a little different when you're trying to find different ways to keep guys involved. Because I mean, it's such a high emotional, high paced game, and like you'd need everybody connected at any point. So yeah, those are the conversations that I've had with Coach Lou and Coach Skin. The adjustment has been, I think, pretty good for the most part. I mean, there's some fine tuning that has to be done, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it's been a fairly good transition because I have so much guys around me that are like super talented.
Yeah, it definitely helps when you got people to throw the ball to.
Yeah.
It can make you look pretty good with some of these passes too.
Yeah.
Any players that you like to watch or take elements from, and has that changed at all as your roles changed? Like now that you're doing a little bit more of that point guard, esque role, are you kind of looking at different guys?
Yeah. So growing up, I was a huge Westbrook fan.
Okay.
He's a beast. He was an underdog, and he just brings that energy to the game.
Effort. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I love that about him. I still watch him. He's still my favorite player. In terms of, I had to watch a lot of film to pick up a lot of things that point guards do, especially at a high level. I was watching Chris Paul. I would be watching defensive guards as well. Davian Mitchell, he's a really good defensive guard.
For sure.
And some of the scoring and different things like include like Donovan Mitchell. I mean, he's very flashy, but some of the moves that he does are very efficient. Zach LaVine, Chris Paul. Yeah, he's very solid.
That's a great list of guys to take just a little bit from here and there and add to your own game. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you guys fell a little bit short in this Rhode Island game, but I thought you made a lot of clutch plays late in that game. And then similarly at Richmond, in this Richmond game, you did the same thing. And you can always kind of tell on the court, especially like when a ball gets inbounded to a guy and they're going to get fouled, how quickly they're looking to get rid of it or not. And you got that ball and there was no looking around like, I'm ready to get fouled. I'm ready to go to the line. And ultimately missed one. So I want to circle back to that. But for the most part, you've been making these clutch plays late in these games. Is that something that some guys like those pressure situations? Has that always been something you've kind of welcomed?
Yeah, I think that is something that I've kind of always welcomed. I've kind of like embraced it, especially more now with the role that I'm in. I feel like Coach Skin has put like a lot of trust in a lot of his guys, and it could be anybody at any point. I mean, we have so many different pieces as we were talking about. But in high school, I was the guy to take that, I'm not gonna say last shot, but it would be who had the ball in his hands in the clutch. In that Rhode Island game, we drew up a play. I went to the baseline, drove, kicked it back out, and I clicked it to Zach Anderson, and he looked right back at me, and he swung it right back to me, and I'm like, dang, I mean, I got to do something with it.
Right.
So, I mean, I feel like regardless of what happens in the play, it's either a learning experience, like a learning curve, or it's a place of triumph, like you're going to do good. And I just think that I'm fortunate enough to be in that situation here at George Mason.
Just the way the league looks this year seems deep, right? Like there's a lot of teams and not a lot of nights off.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to have a couple close losses throughout the year, no matter, just things aren't going to go perfectly. But if you win more of them than you lose, you're in pretty good shape there.
Yeah.
What do you guys do to separate yourself as a team in such a deep league like that?
That's a good, I mean, I would say that in order to separate ourselves, it starts off the court and it's taking care of stuff like that. I know everybody has to do that as a college athlete. But we really stress that Patriot pressure that we want on and off the court. And I feel like it's just the little things like coming in early, getting shots, watching film on your own time, not just with the coaches. And when you're on the court, you're taking every little piece of advice that you can from the coaches and like implementing it in your games because they've seen it before. They've played. They know as much as like people. When you're a player, you're like, I don't want to listen to him. But we have such good, everybody. We have such good coaches and such like a good organization, a good staff that literally anything they say, we will laser focus lock into.
That's great. Yeah, that's what they want to hear too. So we'll clip that soundbite for the coaches because that's exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Mentioned this one free throw against the other night there. You're a good free throw shooter, 77-ish% for the year here. If you do miss a free throw late in a game like that, how long does that stick with you? Does that kind of thing linger? And is that just unlucky, or do you work on something? Like, how does that kind of work for you?
I think that, as I was saying, basketball is like such an emotional sport.
Sure.
And even I still have a problem like trying to get on quickly moving to the next play when you make a mistake. But everybody's human. I mean, you're going to make mistakes. It's a basketball game. But when you do miss shots like that, you think about it for a second, but then you're like, okay, I need to get a stop. Like, forget the free throw, forget everything. Like, you need to get this stop. And I mean, when we have a bunch of guys like that who can make plays, who can get out of their head like that, and can play defense, I mean, it's a special feeling.
And you can tell your teammates trust you too, and that's also nice. I think when you have these kind of moments, because they know you're going to make the next play, and then ultimately you guys, got that done and got that Richmond win here. The night, which is great. Next game is against UMass tomorrow at 2 p.m. in Fairfax. So everybody listen to this, still opportunity to get some tickets and go check that out. Just the last couple ones here, we'll wrap you up here. Question from Alan. Now that you're a couple weeks into league play, what's your early impression of the biggest differences between playing in the America East and the Atlantic 10?
I would say the biggest difference would be, that's a good question. I mean, the America East, we had a bunch of transfers last year and the year before that. So we had a bunch of like A10 and like high major guards. But the A10, I don't know, the atmosphere is different. And like guys are a little taller, a little bit more athletic. And it makes you think about the game even more. You can't just go out there, start jumping and doing reckless things. I think the biggest difference would be the height, the athleticism, and the more thinking involved. I would say that.
Let's go. Question from Chris, and this one we've kind of addressed already, but I'll ask it anyway. Despite being an elite defensive team, the team has struggled on the offensive end with some turnovers and some execution. What are you working on in practice to address and solve these issues? We kind of hit on that, but if there's anything else you want to add.
No, I can add on that. Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. I think that, for example, like down the stretch, like we made a couple turnovers, like myself included. And the things that we do in practice, we try to drill it out. It's a big repetition thing. We talked a little bit about it earlier. For example, when we catch the ball deep in the corner, near the inbounder, it's not a good spot you want to be. It's a hot spot. Like if you get trapped, it's like, dang, there's really not much you could do. So we're just working on like sealing off the guy behind you. Like you don't have to run all the way to the defender or to the inbounder, and just little things like that. I feel like when I'm working on that, all of our other guys are working on that, and it's just like everybody's just bought in. We all want to see each other succeed, and we want to win. So yeah.
No, that's great. I think you're starting to see more of those kind of things work themselves out here too, which is nice to see it pay off for you guys here too. Also kind of address this one a little bit here. M. Kaufman 1 asks, did you think you would be playing a lot of point guard minutes when committing to Mason? What has the learning experience been like playing the position and adjusting to a new program and a new league?
Yeah. We did touch a little bit about that, I guess, but I would say that when I committed to Mason, our coaches had a goal for each of the guys that he recruits. I mean, he wants to see the best of them. And I mean, when we have so many guys on our team, it's like, was it Steve Kerr that said it? No, somebody said it, but it's like we have a math problem. Like we can't just play everybody a certain amount of minutes because we have so many guys, and it's tough. But like, and I would say that the adjustment's been good, but it was an interesting summer because we had so many different pieces. Like we had so many different pieces. And when I committed to Mason, I had one goal. It was just to be the best version of myself that I can. And I would say that to any other person that's going to be committing and going to college next year. Just be 100% bought in to what you're doing. And like, it'll pay off. It will. Like, it might not seem like it will, but it will. And I would say, yeah, that's what I got to say.
No, it's a great answer too. And I think you guys, because of the personnel you have, you can give teams a lot of different looks. Like when KD is on ball, it's different than when you're on ball versus when Jared is, there's just a lot of different combos you guys can throw out there. And I think that makes it hard for a team to scout because, hey, if this isn't working, we'll just kind of go to the next look here, which is fun.
For sure.
In your bio, it says that you like to cook. So what are you cooking? And do you ever cook for any of the teammates?
I've cooked for a couple of my teammates. I've cooked some steak, chicken Alfredo, shrimp Alfredo. Shrimp Alfredo is my personal favorite.
Okay.
Or jerk chicken and rice. And I mean, I like to cook a lot of different things. I mean, I grew up in a house where cooking was the main thing.
Okay.
And I kind of just picked up on it, learned to cook, started to like it. It's also because I love food. So
that's a good reason to want to cook too.
Yeah. But for the video games, I haven't been playing as much recently because I mean, in season you don't have as much time. You'd rather have that time to sleep than to do other things.
Actually fuel up and rest and important stuff.
Yeah. I would say my main 2 games would be NBA 2K, typical. And that's rough. I'll go with Madden. I'll go with Madden.
2 very good answers there. On the 2K front, who's the best on the team? Who's the guy that everybody in 2K wants to take down?
In 2K, the guy that everybody wants to take down is me.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. That's good.
Yep.
All right. I know you don't get a ton of time to do it during the season here, but it's nice every once in a while. Just kind of let the guys know that you can still take them if
I can still take them regardless. Doesn't matter how much time I take off.
There you go. That's awesome. We've had Woody on, we've had Jared on, we've had Darius on from the team. Now had you on. Who's the next Patriot we should have on the podcast here?
Anybody? Let me think. Dang, that's a good list. Have you had Gio Imajuro?
Not yet. Oh, that's a good one.
You might have to get him on here.
All right. Write it down. Make that happen. Brayden, any social media accounts that people can follow to kind of keep tabs on you throughout the season here?
Yeah, I'm mainly on Instagram. It's at Brayden is O'Connor. And yeah, I mainly just use Instagram.
Cool. All right. We'll put that in the episode description here. Thank you for the time. Good luck tomorrow. It'll be fun to watch. Keep it up. Keep bringing that Patriot pressure there, and look forward to keeping tabs along the way.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you know the drill. Hit that like button for us. Rate, review, subscribe. That's always appreciated. And we will catch y'all next time. We're presented by betonline.